I have been my father's side chick for the past 10 years now. Story time. My father and I got together when I was really in high school. This is going to be a bit complex to explain, but follow me closely so that you don't end up judging me wrongly. Being the only girl between my mother and father, if you can relate and you're the only girl, you know that probably you're very close to your dad. Growing up, I wasn't the only girl, but I ended up losing my older sister, who was the other girl in the family. So after that, it was my brothers and I, as well as my parents. Now, most of the time, it would be my dad picking me up from school, and because I had just lost my sister at that time, it was very hard for me to process her death. So every time that he would pick me up, we would go to the park, we'd just sit in the car and just talk about the death of my sister, and both of us would help each other get through it. Now, one day while at the park, I would like to preface by saying that neither of us coerced each other into what happened, but while we're sitting at the park, the car got quiet, and somehow my father and I ended up kissing. It was very unexpected, and the environment thereafter became so awkward. We both apologized to each other. At this point, I was quite old enough. I was actually in my final year in high school, so I understood perfectly everything that had just happened and what it would do to our relationship. So both of us apologized, and the awkwardness did continue for a few months. Now, it was finally graduation day a few months after that initial kiss, and my father and I hugged. Unfortunately, on this day, my mother couldn't be around because she had to travel for work. So at my graduation, it was just my father and I, as well as my brothers. While my father was congratulating me, we hugged, and when we turned, our lips touched and we kissed. That became the second time that my father and I kissed. This time, none of us apologized. We just looked at each other and hoped that no one had seen us. Anyway, when it comes to school, my father is one heck of a serious man. He does not play about education, especially that of his children. So after grade 12, I never even took a gap year. Immediately, I was enrolled into uni. It was during uni that my relationship with my father became so serious because he would come over to where I was living. He had actually rented me an apartment, which my mother was well aware of. Even all my siblings were aware of where I was staying. But somehow, some days my father would come over and he wouldn't go. And you know exactly what happens when two adults of different genders share a room. So now, in case you're wondering, there was never really an official conversation between my father and I to say that we're now together, but just from everything we're doing, you could tell that we were together. We would go on holidays together. Bear in mind, none of my family members knew about this. And to just consolidate the whole idea that I was officially his side chick, he would give me money after whatever would happen, and our relationship just continued that way. It even got to a point where he no longer addressed me as his daughter, would call each other baby, and just from that, it's enough to explain what was going on. Let me also mention here that at this point, I had started to resent my mother so much for reasons that I do not know up to this day. But just from logic, the reason why I started to resent her was the fact that she was the other woman in the relationship that I shared with my dad. Sometimes it would so happen that every time we're together, she would end up calling and he would have to leave, and all those things just started to anger me. Anyway, while in uni, my father would obviously give me a lot of money, or in this case, my sugar daddy as well. He would give me a lot of money, and because I had seen how hardworking my mother is, I think it rubbed off on me that I ended up starting a business. This business has been quite a success, if I do say so myself. This business becoming a success meant so much to me because I knew that eventually our family members would catch on to what was happening, and I would no longer receive the money that he would give me. So I knew that this was definitely my chance to make it big with my father's money. You might be wondering why maybe he wouldn't have given me the money regardless. Honestly, I would never find out if he would give me the money if I wasn't his girlfriend, because at the time that I was old enough to handle money, I was already with him. We shared an agreement that for my father to keep helping me with the money that he would provide and keep being the sugar daddy that I had in my life, I didn't have to have any other man. So it meant no other relationships. My father is the only man that I had ever known. Now, I know this sounds insane, but this is exactly what happened. 10 years into this relationship, last year my father officially kicked the bucket, and this traumatized everyone in the family. I'm sure we all understand how a funeral goes when it's the breadwinner that has died. Now, losing my father was traumatic, and I thought it would eventually bring my mother and I close together. This was actually the start of greater problems that I never imagined for myself. The drama was started by my grandparents at the funeral. This part of Africa, once a man or woman loses his wife or her husband, it's required of them that they should be cleansed from all the evil spirits of their previous partner so that they wouldn't see the ghost of that person. Apparently, if you're not cleansed, allegedly, you would continue to see the ghost of your spouse and you'd never be free enough to move on to another relationship. Now, this is alleged because I have never seen this happen to anyone, my peers, or anyone that I know that has lost their husband or wife, because I have gone round to ask because this thing has been bugging me. I'm sure you're all wondering how cleansing of the widow or the widower would bother me in this sense, because I wasn't even married to my father. Now, this is exactly how it happened. So, on the day that my mother was being cleansed, because in this case, she's the one that had lost her spouse, when she was being cleansed, somehow my grandmother, who's also my mother's mother, claimed to have seen a vision, and in that vision, I was my father's spiritual wife. Now, don't even bother asking me what a spiritual wife is, just go and read about it, because I also don't know what it is. Anyway, so after my grandmother believed that I was actually my father's spiritual wife, I was called into the room that my mother was being cleansed, and I was asked to say the truth if I had known anything about my father and if any way we had gone out together. I don't know if this was a tactic they played on my mind, but they told me if I don't end up coming clean and I had actually slept with my father, it would never be possible for me to move on to another partner, and that my father's ghost would continue to torment me. Now, we know how all elders are probably superstitious, but I don't come from an era where we believe in such superstitions. So according to me, I just thought, you know what, these people are overthinking and nothing at all will happen to me. These demands from my family kept on coming, and I said no, because who's about to accept that they have been going out with their own father? I mean, that was just absurd. I continued to say no, and eventually they said it's up to you if you choose to say yes or not, but from what it looks like you have been going out with your father. For a long time, I believed that these were superstitions until certain things started to happen to me that haven't been adding up, and this is why I'm here. Every time that I come across a man that likes me, bear in mind that this has been months after my dad's death, every time that a man approaches me and he claims that he likes me, we will exchange numbers, and immediately he texts me. When I respond, these men just end up going MIA. And yes, I have reached that phase where I would love to settle down, but I don't know if this has any connection to what happened between my father and I and what everyone claimed at that funeral. Okay, now, our good sis, or whatever we'll call her, has been going through a lot, and whatever has been happening is obviously insane, and it has been insane telling this story. But if you're in the shoes of our good sis, what would you do in this situation? Would you agree that you've been going out with your father so that you'd be cleansed of his ghost? Anyway, let me know what you think in the